You are watching Know Your History with Tim McKain. My aim is to inspire you through history makers and teachers of history. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing a history maker, someone who's a part of the biggest national civil rights movement in American history. The issue of Black rights and equality has always been a battle that African Americans have had to face. From Frederick Douglass, Booker T. Washington, Asa Philip Randolph, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., to name a few. But it all started right here in Greensboro, North Carolina, in the month of February, 61 years ago, when four young brothers from North Carolina A&T decided to sit down at a lunch counter in Woolworth. On the second day, Mr. Clarence Henderson was there, and he actually is a part of one of the most iconic photos of all time. Mr. Clarence Henderson, how you doing today?
Fantastic. Timothy, how are you?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. What is it like being in one of the most well-recognized photos in civil rights history?
I didn't do it to become iconic or to become famous. I did it because it was what needed to be done. And so I see myself the same way now as an average person that was given the opportunity to do something special. I know you've heard the statement, defining moments. And when we research it, we find out that defining moments are not that unusual. We all have them. However, they don't define us. What we do in those moments, that's what defines us. And so we define those moments by standing up or sitting down and stand up for freedom.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So when it comes to the sit-in movement, people look specifically at the four. They know the names of the four. But we've had several conversations about just your experiences of also sitting in other days and also the other people who should be highlighted and recognized. So who are some of the other people who are also fighting for equal rights with you during this time?
Well, of course, you had Joe McNeil, Franklin McKain, David Richmond, and Ezel Blair, who were there on the first day. Now, David is no longer here, not Franklin. They're deceased, and David was one of the few that stayed here during that time and went through a lot of different situations. And I think finally it kind of broke him, and I think he at age 49, he actually died at that age. And there were numbers of other guys such as Clarence Patterson. And with me on that second day was a guy by the name of Joseph Smith, who was actually a senior. He's deceased also. And for me, as I said before, it was not looking to be recognized because it was 40 years before I was even recognized, because when they took the picture was correct, but the names underneath it were not correct, in that the names underneath it were the first four guys that were there the first day. Mm-hmm. And it was actually 40 years before I was recognized for even having participated. But again, it had no effect on me because I did not do it for that reason. As a matter of fact, I was surprised when I saw it in the newspaper, and my parents were not even aware of it. And the only way they found out about it was a picture in the paper.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. When it comes to equality, from your perspective, how would our leaders of old, if they could see the future, if they could see the current state of America, how do you think they would have handled the civil rights issue differently? Would they have changed anything, or would they have done everything the same?
They would have done everything the same in my mind, because today what you see is peaceful movements, which we have a right to assemble and have peaceful movements. But the bottom line is that when these movements turn into violence, it's totally different from what it was meant to be. And these kind of movements to turn to violence, tear down rather than build up. And so the idea is to bring to light the situations that are occurring, that it might be that they might be recognized so that there can be changes made. And violence always begets violence, and peace is the answer to these situations. And so we have to recognize that and live by that code. That's for me, it's a code for me, because actually what I do is that I at this particular point in time, continue to help bridge the gap, whether it be to bridge the gap between the races, economics, or whatever situation it is, where it causes division rather than unity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Someone who was the president of the North Carolina, excuse me, someone who was president of the Martin Luther King Jr. Commission. Um, North Carolina, Martin Luther King is known for his civil rights issue, but he's not necessarily as well known in his economics and his push for economics. As someone who was a student of Dr. Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., speak on his economic plans and his push for economics towards the later end of his life.
Well, the second part of the movement was supposed to be economic empowerment. Unfortunately, it has taken over 61 years to start to really put that in place by understanding the free market capitalistic system that we live under. But in that system, you don't have to ask permission to participate in it. You just go and do it, but you have to understand that system and master it. And that system simply says that all you need is a product or a service that people either need or want, and you can make yourself a lot of money. However, if you put a distribution system in place, that system will run the business that you operate, and the people work that system, and you can make money not just on your own efforts, but on the efforts of others by hiring them and employing them and teaching them the system. And so we're just now beginning to recognize that, and we have to pause our emotions. We all have them, but they cannot rule or dominate. We have to look at the facts of life and begin to change what we do, and in order to achieve all the things that the American system offers. Because once you look at the financial solutions, or you look at the solutions, you become solution based, then people always have a need for your services or your products. And so that's where we are at this particular point in time. Timothy, one of the things that I think we had talked about before, and I want to share that with you before time runs out, or don't have time to share it, is that we did not ask to come here on slave ships. We did not ask to be put under slave laws, no Jim Crow laws. But that was a lot in life that was issued to us. And, in life, there are always issues, whether it be those kind of issues or whatever. The question is, how do we respond to that? Do we respond by competing rather than comparing and proving that we are well able to do things as well as anybody else? Or do we begin to go to someone else, in this case, another race of people, and ask them permission and ask them, can we or may we? When we don't have to do that, we just have to go out and do what, according to our constitutional laws, allows us to do, and that is to succeed or fail on our own merits. As a matter of fact, we can actually fail our ways to success. So I see us as a strong people, a people that are spiritually strong, and we just have to recognize it and look at it one day at a time and start to plan our lives out and not let someone else plan them out. Our history is well defined, and it shows us what we have been able to accomplish. And unfortunately, they're trying to erase history right now. And we just need to go back and read and look at how people succeeded. Guys such as Benjamin O. Davis Jr., who went through all kinds of things at West Point where they wouldn't even speak to him, but yet he became successful. And we had to recognize it's not what's behind us, it's not what's in front of us, it's what's in us. We all have within us an ability to achieve a degree of success. And we just have to become focused in the things that we do and realize that by focusing and planning, certain realities can set in and not be allowed to have someone else tell us who we are, what we can do, because each individual is very unique in their capabilities of what they're able to do. And we just have to find our niche in society and move forward with that. Because when I look at my history, for example, I can only go as far back as my mother and father. I didn't know my grandparents on either side. And my mother and father only had a third grade education. But my father is the smartest person I ever known as far as common sense is concerned, because he used the ability that God gave him when he left the farm in South Carolina and came to Greensboro. He never worked for anybody but himself because he had this talent that God had given him as a mechanic. And I used to see car dealerships bring cars to him that their guys couldn't repair, and they had a piece of paper on the wall. So he mastered the craft that God gave him, and lived a very good life through that. And so right now, we can study what any successful history. There's always a pattern there, and in America, you can actually feel your way to success. And I think about Booker T. Washington when he started Tuskegee Institute, and the fact that the kids that came there had to help build the buildings because there were not enough buildings to house and teach classes. And he couldn't afford to buy bricks to build a building. So he went into the kindling business, and he failed 3 times. The 4th time he was so successful that others came to buy his bricks. By the same token, Thomas Edison 1,000 times before he invented the light bulb. And so it requires a certain tenacity, a certain integrity, a desire to achieve. And if we can receive it, we can achieve it.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. That push to change history is not something new. And the reason why I say that is because W. Du Bois and the whole Booker T. Washington thing. And to me, I respect both of them and their pursuits. But one of the things that I found interesting, especially in our community, was there seemed to be this push that Booker T. Washington, he didn't have the same interest, or he wasn't as evolved as W. Du Bois. And people looked at him differently because he was about working together, building a community, working with your hands, being economically prosperous. Why do you think people looked at Booker T. Washington differently than W.E.B. Du Bois? Because they kind of changed history and how they looked at it. Their view of Booker T. Washington was different than W.E.B. Du Bois.
2 different people with 2 different ideas. And one must determine which idea was the most successful. For me, W.E.B. Du Bois's idea was to take the top 10%. My question is, who's the top 10%? There's no tests that you can give to measure the heart of a person. It's only when they get in the heat of the battle is when you determine who or what they are. And W.E.B. Du Bois's idea was that we build our own wealth and understand how the wealth building process. And through that process, when we go to the table, we don't have to go there with our hands extended, asking for something. We go there with what we have attained, built as far as wealth is concerned. Is that can we work together on certain things to improve both our situations? So there must be always a comparison for people to look and see which direction they should take. Again, I would look at myself because I was not supposed to have the success that I've had because I don't have a birth certificate. I'm born on a farm. My father was a sharecropper, but yet, by the grace of God, taking advantage of opportunities that were presented to me, I find myself on this podcast with you right now, having been appointed the chairman of the Martin Luther King Commission by former Governor McCory, and sight unseen because of the platform that I had, having been recognized by the president, one of our former presidents, on 2 different occasions because of things that I've done, the things that I have contributed to society. So it's not where you come from, it's where you're going. And it is time out for us to be going to others and saying, do you see me as success? Because success is not measured by individuals so much as it is the standard that you live under. Again, as I said before, we live under the free market capitalistic system, and I'm an optimist. And I see the glass half full as opposed to half empty. And that half full glass represents the American opportunity. And all one has to do is put themselves over into that glass, and whatever comes out belongs to them. And then once we understand that, when it comes to wealth, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep. I've seen wealth be distributed. People receive wealth, various people, and it goes right through their hands because they don't understand that they must stop a portion of it. So there's a great deal to be learned about how to master this system. And I would hope that by people like yourself, when I said like yourself, younger people coming behind me, I can pass the torch of liberty that they understand things like, and I'm using this in general, I'm not speaking about you specifically, things such as financial literacy, how to not just build wealth, but how to keep wealth, how to live the best life that we can live according to the environment we find ourselves in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Um, my next question to you is, in your opinion, who is the greatest Black leader of all time in American history? Who's the greatest Black leader?
For me, you have asked me a question that's impossible for me to answer. I would have to say you have to look at various eras of time. When you look at, and I'll use something that I know that you got involved in, that's sports. When you look at sports and the boxing arena, in a certain era of time, Joe Louis was the greatest of all times. During more modern times, people would say Muhammad Ali. You do basketball, it's Michael Jordan. Right now, they may say LeBron James or whoever it is. It's the person that you have to deal with the time and the era and the environment you're in and be the best that you can be. So when the statement is made about Black leaders, that puts us in a box, and we should not be in a box. The question is, who are the greatest leaders? Because see, when going back to sports, when Joe Louis as a heavyweight champion, he wasn't a Black heavyweight champion. He was a championship of the world. He was a champion of the world. When you look at the NBA, when the NBA championship was played, is the NBA champions of the world, and then you have a mixture there, blacks, whites, or whatever. So you have to look at is how well those people play the game of life that they were playing, whether it be in sports or the game, real issues of life, and how we contend with it. So it's literally impossible unless you could put them all, in my mind, in one era of time and see who dominated. And you win some and you lose some. It's hard to get knocked down but not knocked out. And so when we look at that, like Black History Month, for example, is a misnomer. History is 12 months out of the year, every day, and who has done what to be determined as having made history. And so we miss a lot of opportunities of looking at, of seeing American heroes based upon us trying to put them in a box when we should be really looking at them is what did they bring to society? We have, for example, when you or I pull up to a stoplight, there's a Black person that made the stoplight. All kinds of various things. I know I talked with you before about Jesse Owens when Hitler the Nazis had the idea that they were going to build this master race, and Jesse went over there and destroyed that because he went on there and won all those medals. So it was a gift that God had given him that allowed him to succeed in the expertise of sports that he was involved in.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, Mr. Henderson. Where can the people find you on social media, Facebook, any of your articles, anything like that? Where can they find you?
If they would just Google my name, they would see a lot of different things that I've done. I think the difference between me and some of the people that participate in the civil rights movement I participated in, God has just led me on a path of continuing to do that. And I don't take it lightly. I feel it to be a privilege to be able to be one that defends our freedom, because freedom is not free. It must be defended on a daily basis. So one of the places you can look is at www.clarencehenderson.vpweb.com. And that's where I do speaking engagements. I go across America sharing with people how we are better together than apart. As Dr. King said, unless we learn to live together as brothers, we perish together as fools. And America, in a lot of ways, is destroying itself from within because of not recognizing what has brought us to where we are right now and trying to come up with theories as opposed to facts. And so hopefully people will want to hear what I have to say how it was in times past. Those times are no longer here, and understand when we look at a thing called racism, for example, that you can't legislate racism out of a person. You just have to have laws in place that deal with those on an individual basis. They come up and go out and live our lives the best that we can. And look at our dash. That dash is the time between our date of birth and our date of death, and look at what we have done. And hopefully each one of us will leave this world a better place when we leave it than what it was when we got here.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, hey, Brother Clarence, you have an amazing day, sir.
You too. You do too. And always a pleasure talking with you, Timothy. Don't
Yes,
be a
sir.
stranger.
Yes, sir. Will not be a stranger.
Okay, we'll talk to you later.